When I was 16, my parents announced to their friends, "He's our mistake." My mother laughed, pointed at me and added, "Birth control works 99% of the time. And he's the 1%. I left that night with my backpack and $40 dollars. 6 years later, they still found me. Today, they stood on my doorstep in tears, begging to talk. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I guess 6 years of swallowing everything finally needs a place to go. My name's Caleb, 16M when all of this started. Growing up, it was pretty clear I wasn't the golden child. That title belonged to my brother, Aaron. He was the planned one, good grades, varsity letters, the kid my parents loved to parade around at dinner parties. Me? Well, according to my mom's favorite wine-soaked joke, I was the 1% failure rate on store-brand birth control. Hilarious, right? She loved telling that story. I was maybe 8 the first time she dropped that punchline in front of company. People laughed. I laughed too. Eventually, I got good at laughing with them like it didn't leave a mark. Like it wasn't carving something out of me, piece by piece. When teachers asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I'd crack jokes. A tax deduction. A household expense. Stuff I heard my dad mumble after a few beers. Adults thought I was witty. I was just mirroring the only language of value I ever heard attached to myself. The night everything snapped wasn't even some huge dramatic fight. It was my mom's birthday dinner. Not the official family dinner, that was just the 4 of us at some overpriced chain restaurant. Dad complaining about the prices while ordering his 3rd scotch. No, I mean the real celebration, the one 2 days later when she invited all her friends. You know the type. Country club women with identical blowouts and enough Botox to paralyze a horse. Our house wasn't fancy, but Mom pulled out all the stops. New placemats, fancy candles, the good plates that usually stayed boxed up. She even made Dad iron his one decent button-down and begged him to please, for once, stop at 2 drinks. Aaron got the usual prep talk about making a good impression. Me? I didn't even get a please behave. Not even a glance. I was background noise. Should have seen it coming. The night started with me running around like a hired waiter, passing hors d'oeuvres, refilling glasses, collecting empty plates. "Michael, be useful for once," she barked when I hesitated for half a second too long. I didn't mind, honestly. Being invisible was the safest outcome at these things. But then one of Mom's friends started talking about how expensive kids were. Something about college funds and braces and how you had to plan carefully these days. And that's when my mom, for glasses of white wine deep, got that look. The look that meant she was about to be funny. She gestured right at me, while I stood there holding a tray of dirty glasses. "Birth control is only 99% effective," she said with a dramatic pause. "Caleb's the 1%. The whole room erupted in laughter. Even my dad laughed. This deep, bellowing laugh like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. I just stood there, frozen, smiling tightly because what else could I do? Aaron, at least, had the decency to look mortified, staring down at his plate like it might swallow him whole. And just when I thought it was over, Mom piled on. "We already had our perfect kid," she said, motioning toward Aaron. "Caleb's what you get when you don't double-check the expiration date." More laughter. More jokes. Someone, I think it was Dad's boss, even said, "Ouch, bet that's gonna leave a mark." Like we were all starring in some sad little sitcom. I didn't throw the glasses. I didn't scream or cry. I just carefully set the tray down on the nearest table and walked upstairs to my room. Nobody noticed. The conversation had already moved on to someone's vacation plans. I sat on my bed, staring at nothing, and something inside me just shut off, like a computer overheating and powering down. No rage, no tears, just this cold, clear certainty. I wasn't staying. Not another day. Not another hour pretending that being the family punchline was normal. I dumped my school books out of my backpack and started packing. 2 t-shirts, a pair of jeans, a hoodie, underwear, my toothbrush, the $40 my grandma had given me for my birthday, emergency Cliff Bars from the pantry stash for when Dad forgot groceries, phone charger, nothing else. Aaron came up while I was stuffing everything into my bag. We didn't say much. We didn't have to. He saw the look on my face and just Understood. Without a word, he disappeared into his room and came back with $120 in crumpled bills and his old flip phone, the kind you could load prepaid minutes onto. It wasn't connected to our family plan. He promised to top it up tomorrow. They won't even notice you're gone until lunchtime, he said quietly, like he was giving me the weather forecast. For a second, I almost broke. Almost unpacked everything and pretended I could survive one more year. But then I heard more laughter drifting up from downstairs. Mom, telling someone that teenagers these days were so dramatic when they didn't get enough attention. And just like that, the coldness came back. Midnight. I waited until I was sure both parents were passed out. Mom's wine bottle empty on the kitchen counter. Dad snoring in front of the muted TV. Aaron left his desk light on, the old signal we used when sneaking snacks from the kitchen growing up. All clear. No note. No apology. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for making me feel like a walking, talking regret for 16 years? I slipped out into the October night, hoodie pulled tight around me, the cold biting through the cheap fabric. I didn't have a destination, didn't even really have a plan, but it still felt better than staying. I walked until my legs hurt, until I found a 24-hour McDonald's with free Wi-Fi. I used the connection to figure out the bus schedule. Bought the cheapest Greyhound ticket I could, one city over, not far but far enough. I spent the first 2 nights sleeping at the bus station. By the third, I found a spot in a youth shelter, 2 weeks maximum stay. It wasn't great. Constant noise, arguments, people crying in their sleep. But it was a roof. And it was mine. I got a dishwashing gig at a grimy diner that didn't care about underage workers as long as you showed up and didn't steal. Cash under the table. Enough for basics. Enough to survive. Aaron kept in touch through a throwaway email we set up. He told me that Mom cried when she reported me missing big, dramatic Facebook posts about her troubled son, who had run away from his loving home. Dad apparently told the cops I'd be back, once he got hungry enough. They were wrong. No amount of hunger. Not the nights my stomach twisted in knots. Not the mornings I had to choose between bus fare and food. Was enough to drag me back to a house where I was nothing more than a punchline. I didn't belong to them anymore. I belonged to myself. The first few months after I left home felt less like freedom and more like a slow-motion collapse I couldn't afford to stop. Every day was just another layer of grime on my hands, my clothes, and somewhere deeper inside. The youth shelter let me stay for 2 weeks. It wasn't a place to thrive, it was a place to not die. That was enough at the time. I showered in flip-flops, kept my backpack under my arm when I slept, and ate whatever was available. Some nights, that meant cold peanut butter sandwiches and stale cereal. Other nights, just water and patience. My job at the diner was barely that. The manager didn't care how old I was or where I came from, only that I kept my mouth shut and washed dishes faster than I broke them. I worked 6 nights a week and crashed wherever I could. When the shelter time ran out, I started sleeping in the break room. I'd curl up behind the mop bucket with a hoodie rolled under my head and hope nobody noticed. Of course, someone did. His name was Marcus. He was a line cook, older guy, mid-30s, shaved head, tired eyes. He caught me passed out one morning when I was supposed to be scrubbing pots. I figured I was done. Instead, he sat across from me with a box of cold fries and said, "Rough night." I didn't answer. He didn't press. We sat in silence for a bit before he added, "You look like someone who's got nowhere else to be." I don't know why, but I told him everything. Maybe because he didn't look surprised. Maybe because he didn't interrupt. Maybe because, for the first time, someone actually listened without trying to spin it into a moral lesson. He told me he knew what it was like to be someone's regret. His version was different, but the damage tasted the same. After that, he became the closest thing I had to a safety net. He let me crash on his couch for a few weeks until I saved up enough to rent a studio apartment the size of a walk-in closet. It had peeling paint, one working outlet, and a smell I couldn't place, but it was mine. And it didn't come with laughter at my expense. Aaron kept emailing. He was the only one from my old life who knew where I was. He said Mom cried when the cops came to take the missing persons report, then laughed about it an hour later on the phone with her friend. "She always said you were dramatic," he wrote. "Guess this fits her narrative." They didn't look very hard. A couple Facebook posts, 2 calls to classmates, a visit from a neighbor who asked if they'd checked the bus station. That was it. By month 4, Aaron sent me a screenshot that made me want to smash the nearest wall. Mom had posted a photo of my old bedroom, now repainted, redecorated, and rebranded as her wellness space. A knockoff Peloton bike sat where my bed used to be. Framed motivational quotes lined the walls. The caption read, "Turning life's lemons into lemon water. #FitMom, #blessed." More likes than her original post about me being missing. That was the moment something changed in me. Until then, I'd been surviving. Now I wanted to build. Not just escape, but evolve into someone they couldn't ignore. Someone they'd regret discarding. I stopped being angry all the time. Anger burned calories I needed to climb. Instead, I got focused. I started reading everything I could on money, credit, investing, budgeting. Reddit threads, YouTube videos, podcasts playing while I scrubbed dishes or folded laundry. I applied for my GED and passed at 17. That's when I found a cheap online community college program. I enrolled in business and finance not because I had a passion for accounting, but because I wanted to speak the language of power. Money didn't care if you were a mistake. Money didn't laugh behind your back. That's also when I met Elena. We were in the same online study group for an Excel project. She messaged me privately after I fixed her formula. "Thanks for the save. Want to walk me through what you did?" We started talking. First about formulas, then about everything else. She worked full-time as a receptionist at a small law firm while studying for her paralegal certification. Smart, sharp, with this calm intensity that made you pay attention. The first time we met in person, I was shaking so bad I spilled coffee on myself before I could say hello. She showed up in a messy bun and jeans, carrying a beat-up leather notebook full of color-coded tabs. She smiled like she already knew me, like she saw straight through the armor I wore around everyone else. That night, I told her everything. Not just the diner and the shelter. Not just the walk out the door. Everything. I expected her to pull away. Instead, she nodded slowly and said, "My mom used to call me her anchor. Said I was dragging her down. We're the same flavor of broken, Caleb. Just different recipes." After that, we were inseparable. She didn't fix me. She didn't try. She built with me. We'd eat takeout on the floor of my tiny apartment and scroll through property listings for fun, calculating returns and imagining what it would be like to own something. Meanwhile, Aaron kept me updated on the home front. Dad's drinking was getting worse. Mom's social circle had turned on her when it became clear she couldn't keep up financially. Their credit cards were maxed out. They refinanced the house twice and still couldn't catch up. By the time Aaron graduated college and moved out for a job, things were falling apart. He knew better than to tell them where I lived. We had a system. If he ever texted the phrase "blue waffle," a disgusting old inside joke, it meant they were close to finding me. But they didn't. They weren't looking. Not really. Until they needed something. That wouldn't happen until later. For now, I was working 2 jobs, stacking money, building credit with a secured card, and obsessively tracking every dollar. Every bit of progress felt like a brick in the wall between me and them. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. I wanted leverage. And day by day, paycheck by paycheck, I was getting it. Year 4 after I left home was when things started to shift. Until then, I was surviving and slowly building. But now I was climbing. I'd been promoted twice at the company where Marcus helped get me in. First to team lead, then to assistant project manager. The job wasn't glamorous, but the pay was steady, and more importantly, it came with benefits and experience. My apartment was small but clean. The pipes didn't rattle when I turned on the sink. The neighbors didn't scream at 3 a.m. I had a real bed, not a mattress on the floor. My credit score hit 700. I started investing cautiously at first index funds, savings bonds, then a small real estate investment trust. I became obsessed with financial independence. Every cent I saved felt like distance from them, from what they made me believe I was. Elena moved in around this time. She brought structure to my chaos, Google Sheets, labeled folders, a color-coded wall calendar. We lived modestly, shared goals, worked late, budgeted like lunatics. While other couples planned wedding venues, we planned debt-to-income ratios and retirement targets. Sounds boring, but it felt like safety, like control. Aaron kept me in the loop. He was the only person from that world I still talked to regularly. After college, he took a job out of state and finally started setting boundaries with our parents. But he kept tabs. And he warned me early when things at the old house, as we called it, started spiraling. Dad's business ideas kept failing. Mom's attempts to maintain appearances drained every credit line they had. They were on their third refinance. By the time Aaron told me they were in pre-foreclosure, I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me was how cold I felt reading that text. No panic. No rush of anger. Just calculation. Elena noticed immediately. We were eating dinner when I froze, rereading Aaron's message. She looked up, chewing slowly. "You okay?" I nodded once. Then, without much thought, I said, "I think I'm going to buy their debt." She didn't blink. Instead, she said, "If you're serious, we need to do it right. Through a shell company. No direct link to you." I looked at her and realized something. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the leverage they never gave me. With Elena's help and her knowledge from working at a law firm, we formed a simple LLC, clean name, basic documentation. We contacted the bank that owned the mortgage and expressed interest in acquiring the debt. Technically, they weren't supposed to sell it to just anyone, but a business entity offering a cash deal for a distressed property in a declining zip code? They jumped on it. 3 weeks later, after a pile of paperwork and wire transfers, I held the deed and the debt. My parents didn't know it yet, but I was their landlord now. The house they laughed in while humiliating me, I owned it. I didn't tell them right away. That wasn't the point. I waited. I waited for them to come looking. And eventually they did. Started slowly. Aaron called one night sounding nervous. "They've been posting old baby pictures of you on Facebook," he said. Mom had uploaded a photo of me at 4 years old, in a Halloween costume. The caption read, "Missing my baby boy. Please help us reconnect. #ComeHome, #forgiveness, #family first." The same pictures she couldn't be bothered to post when I actually went missing. The comments were brutal. "I thought you said he joined the military? Didn't you say he was in rehab?" My favorite. "Isn't that the room you turned into a gym?" Dad joined a support group for parents of estranged children and started portraying himself as some broken man desperate for reconciliation. Aaron said he even quit drinking for 3 weeks. But it wasn't about me. It was about the house. And then, they found me. Aaron had visited us for the weekend. He posted an Instagram story at a local burger joint we loved. Just 10 seconds, but in the background was a mural unique to our city. He deleted it almost immediately, but it was too late. Mom had already seen it. 27 missed texts later, Aaron sent me a single message. "Blue waffle. That was our code. Time to prepare." 2 weeks passed. Then my neighbor mentioned someone had been asking about me. Showed her a photo, described me in detail. She thought it was sweet. Maybe an old friend trying to reconnect. I knew better. I changed our locks the same day. Part of me wanted to leave, to vanish again, just out of instinct. But Elena stopped me. "You own the house they're begging to stay in," she said calmly. "Why run now?" She was right. I didn't need to run. I needed to be still and wait. And I didn't wait long. 3 days ago, the buzzer rang in the middle of my work-from-home day. I checked the camera feed on my phone. There they were. My parents. Older. Tired. Smaller somehow. Dad had lost weight, but not in a healthy way. He looked deflated, like someone had turned off the air inside him. Mom clutched her purse like it held her last thread of pride. I didn't answer. I watched them ring again, and again. Eventually, they slipped a note under the door. "Please call us. It's urgent. Love, Mom and Dad." That night, Aaron confirmed it. They were in town about the house. They'd exhausted every other option. They were hoping their forgotten son could help. They still didn't know I already had. And I wasn't about to tell them over the phone. Elena and I spent the next 2 days getting everything ready. Paperwork, options, conditions. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted them to understand. I wanted them to see. Yesterday morning, they buzzed again. This time, I let them in. 6 years of silence were about to end. They had no idea what was waiting on the other side of the door. When I buzzed them in, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from something sharper, like adrenaline laced with memory. My body knew what was coming, even if I had rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times. Elena squeezed my hand once, then disappeared into the bedroom. We had agreed this part, the beginning, had to be mine alone. The knock came a minute later. I opened the door. It was surreal, like opening a time capsule, only instead of old photos or childhood toys, it was two people who used to hold absolute power over me, now looking like they'd barely survived a storm. My mom's hair was a dull, frizzy imitation of the polished image she always clung to. Her once expensive purse had been replaced with something worn and faded. My dad had lost weight, and with it the false confidence liquor used to give him. He looked like a balloon after a party, deflated and forgotten. We stared at each other for a moment. Then my mom made a choked sound and stepped toward me like she was going to hug me. I took a step back. She froze. The rejection hit harder than I thought it would. Her eyes welled up immediately, but I didn't feel the same sting. Dad cleared his throat. "Can we come in? Just to talk." I nodded once. They walked in slowly, scanning the apartment. It wasn't luxurious, but it was warm, lived in, clean. The furniture matched, the plants were alive, the walls weren't bare. I let them stand. No drinks, no chairs, no small talk. Mom looked around, eyes darting. "This is nice. You've done well. We're so proud of you." I said nothing. She kept talking, her voice trembling. "I've been praying for this moment. I never stopped thinking about you. Not a day went by that I didn't wonder if you were okay." I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't seem that way when you turned my bedroom into a home gym." The words hung in the air like smoke. She flinched, but I didn't give her time to regroup. "Why are you here?" Dad exhaled like the question took the weight out of him. He looked at Mom, silently begging her to explain. She dropped the act instantly. "We're losing the house." Just like that. No prelude. No more pretense. They tried everything: loan modifications, GoFundMe campaigns, desperate relatives. Nothing worked. Foreclosure was 2 weeks away. And now they had come to me, the backup plan. The mistake. They needed money. A lot of it. 10,000 to stall the bank. Maybe more to find a new place. I let them talk. I watched them shift from humility to assumption. As if, by stepping through my door, I was already theirs again. Dad asked me about my job. Mom made a vague comment about how family sticks together. They began mentally measuring what they could take, what they could still extract from me. Then I dropped the folder on the table between us. They both looked down, confused. "I already bought the house," I said. Mom blinked. "What?" "I own it. Through an LLC. The mortgage, the deed, everything. It's mine." Dad opened the folder and stared at the documents like they were in another language. Mom looked pale. Her lip quivered. "You what?" she whispered. "Why?" "Because I wanted to make sure no one else did. And because I wanted you to come to me, just like this." They were silent. Then Mom said, "So, you'll let us stay? You'll help us, right?" I nodded. "Maybe. Under some conditions." I laid them out calmly. They would publicly acknowledge how they treated me. Not just to me, but to their friends, family, neighbors, the same people who once laughed at their dinner party jokes. The same people who believed their stories. They would attend family therapy with me and Aaron. Not to rebuild anything. Just so they could hear from a professional what their behavior had done. What it had cost. They would sign a legal agreement that they would never ask me for financial help again. No loans. No gifts. No contact about money ever. Mom started crying again. Not performative this time. Real. Small. Ugly. Dad just stared at the documents, jaw tight, fists trembling. "You did all this to hurt us?" he finally asked. I shook my head. "I did it to balance the books." They didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I gave them 48 hours to decide. Then I showed them out. They didn't hug me. They didn't even look back. Those 2 days were strange. I felt everything and nothing all at once. Powerful, hollow, calm, sick. Elena kept me grounded. She didn't push, didn't analyze. She just brought tea, sat beside me, and let the silence pass. Aaron stayed on our couch, acting as buffer. On the morning of the deadline, they came back. They agreed to the terms. Not because they understood, but because they had no other choice. We signed everything with Elena's coworker as a notary. Copies made, scanned, backed up. It was done. Since then, things have been complicated. Mom posted a long, vague apology on Facebook. The kind where she takes zero responsibility but expects applause for her bravery. I didn't comment. Dad called me twice. Small talk. Awkward. I let him speak. I didn't offer much in return. Aaron flew back home last week. Before he left, he hugged me for a long time. You did what I never could, he whispered. You made them listen. Am I happy? Not really. But I'm clear. The anger I carried for years feels quieter now. Still there, but duller. Like an old scar. I'm not looking for closure anymore. I don't need them to love me or even like me. I just need them to understand. I survived them. And now I choose who I let in. Last night, Elena and I sat on the balcony eating cheap takeout and talking about maybe getting a dog. A house. A future. She asked me if I regretted anything. I thought about the 16-year-old kid walking into the cold night with $40 and a granola bar. I thought about every sleepless shift. Every stomachache from hunger. Every time I told myself to keep going because someday I'd be free. And then I looked at her and said, no. Some mistakes really do turn out to be the best decisions you ever make.